I would really love for us to have. We are not so many in the class, so I think we should have like an interactive kind of, you know, um, session. So the rest of us, is it that you're somewhere noisy or you prefer not to talk? You can actually use the
Hi, good evening, Nikki.
hi, Temi, good evening. Good to see you and good to meet you rather because I'm not seeing your face. You can use the chat box if you want to say something. I'd like us to just be, free, interactive. If you have questions, please, by all means, ask your questions. Um, Today, I'll just be taking us through animations in Flutter. Mercy, made me believe that we are, most of us here are beginners for animations in Flutter. So I want to take you through the basics rather, and start from the beginning, explain everything, and then you know, at least to give you a head start for animations in Flutter in general. So, um, first off, before I move further, my name is Nikki Eke. I am a mobile engineer and an ambassador in Rive, and I'm really honored to be here today to share with the rest of us. And like I said earlier, I will be looking at animations in Flutter. So, um, why why do we encourage mobile developers to have animations in their platforms? Like, why why is it something that's important? Why do we discuss it? Why do we have it as an option to enhance the way your app looks? So I'm going to ask a question, right? And if you cannot talk where you are, you can just respond and maybe type up in the chat box or something. Okay, I want to ask, what is your view on, having animations in applications? Is this something that you are um, excited about? Is it something that you are happy about? Is it something that you encourage, or you think is just unnecessary? We can actually do without it. So, what are your views? I want to know. So, you can share your thoughts on the chat box. You can raise your hand and unmute your mic and speak. So, I'd like to hear from us. Just let me know, what is your thoughts, on why we should have animations in mobile apps? What is your view on it? Do you think it's unnecessary? It's not really needed. It's not an important aspect of mobile app development, or you think it's really, really necessary? So I'd like to know your thoughts. I'm waiting. Please indulge me. I believe that is not how I ask this question. No one person will reply. So I'm waiting for one person to at least respond. So please, I'm waiting. Let me be calling people since nobody wants to respond. Who will I call now? Favor. What do you think? At least I know Favor answered me in the beginning. He was the first person that said hello. So Favor, what do you think about having animations in your Flutter app? Is it necessary, or is it something that's not a necessity? What is your view on it? I'd like at least one person to respond. So Favor, are you not on the call?
Yeah, I'm on the call. I'm on the call.
All right.
So it's not, I won't say it's a necessity, but it just gives your app kind of like a professional look or feel rather. Just makes you know that okay, developers tried, they put in their onions and building the app. Yeah. So it's not really a necessity. Just like let people know that the user experience feel. Yeah. You
Okay,
get what I'm
that's
saying?
yeah, I do. I get you.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Okay. Olumide, please go ahead.
I think that good evening, everyone. I think the animations, they are nice, but most of the time, if you are building an app by yourself, it takes a bit like I want to add this feature, I want to add that feature, I want to add this feature, I want to add that feature, and then animation. Well, I know that it will take like a few hours to finish this animation, so I just think that let me just keep it. Except is an animation that I can't do without. Maybe the designer says it's a must or something like that. But most of the time, you just want to move fast, want to ignore it until the end.
Yeah. Mercy, please go ahead.
So I would say animation is a necessity, but it's actually good. It gives the app a good visual appearance, and then there's a kind of joy it gets when you see a website with animation. I don't know if it's only important. There's a kind of joy it gets when you see apps or website with animation. So it's actually a good thing and a nice thing to have, but not really a necessity.
Okay. Thank you so much for to everyone that answered. Thank you for supporting, the fact that you are responding. I really like communication that is two sided. I don't like just be talking on my own. So now I know your thoughts. Thank you so much, Favor Olumide, Mercy for the response. Um, on my own end, I believe that animations, the most important thing is your app's functionality. Actually, if your app is not working well, but animation choke, the users can't enjoy the app because the functionality is bad. But animation has its upsides. It encourages users to use your app more. The users enjoy using your app because of the animation. I can say for one, Duolingo is one app that I was using at one point to learn languages. But I don't know which of us here. If you've used Duolingo before, can you just maybe drop a reaction so I will know? So at least one person has used Duolingo. I was trying to learn Spanish with Duolingo. I was there. I had strict, like I was maintaining on Duolingo for months. If they bring a Spanish speaker now, I can't still speak Spanish because I don't know. But I was enjoying the app because of the animations. I was enjoying the app. I was like, there's so many things that are so eye catchy, and they have a way of keeping users to use the app, which is what we as app developers we want. We want people to use our products. We want people to be always engaging, the app or whatever. So that's one thing that animations can do for you. I've seen people pay huge amount of money for only when they say they have 300 days streak. I can relate, honestly. I can relate. Mhm. Duolingo. Well, if I catch that Duolingo bed outside, I'll just travel. I was getting emails like Duolingo is sad. Please, it should be sad. I've dropped out. Anyway, I digress. So like I was saying, it helps users, enjoy using your app. I've seen people that have paid lots of money just to have um a website that's engaging because it draws users in. People pay huge amount of money for websites that look really, really good. That's why not to trade, but design industry pays even more than engineering because people are moved by what they see. So why am I saying this? In as much as it's good for your app to have functionality, it is the place for enhancing your users' interaction, enhancing what your user is seeing, and it increases users' engagement and all of that, right? So without, I'll just go ahead to share with us since it's like an introductory kind of session. So I'll let you know why we have animations, why it's encouraged that we have animations in our app. In as much as it's not a must, it's not mandatory, but it helps. It helps. It has many advantages. So I'm going to take us through the advantages, like purpose of why we should use animations Flutter apps, and then I'm going to take you through the two categories of animations in Flutter, because in Flutter there are two major categories of animations you can have on your app. So I'll take you through that. I'll also take you through what's the name? The different core concepts for explicit animations. I'll explain that all that for you. I'll now show you some animation samples, and then I will probably take you through a particular sample and then explain how it works. And I think that is really all for today's class. And then we'll have questions. I think even as I'm explaining, we'll have questions because I like to be sure that okay, I'm communicating. So, like I explained earlier, animations help user experience a lot. You can use animations to provide visual feedback. Like when someone clicks on a button, it animates. You can use it to improve your navigation. You can use it to show an arrow somewhere pointing. Maybe user should point on this or do this. You can use it to make your interactions more intuitive. your users feel they feel more engaged using your application. So even if you are someone that you are working in a company where there's already a design, that you're not the one calling the shot for the design, um, it's something you should have at the back of your mind, just in case, just in case. You should have that ability to pull up an animation for, we don't know if the next company you work with would have this kind of needs, and then you'll have to learn it. So why not just have the skill? And then for your personal projects, for portfolio projects, you can have animations in them. These are things that are that engage people. When people see it, they are engaged. So your functionality, of course, has to be top notch, but animations are like the icing on the cake. So that's why you should have animations in your project, in your app, because it just helps keep users engaged. So if, let's say, prior to now you've not given it much thought, you just feel like it's just something that it's not a must, I mustn't do it, I mustn't know it. Yes, you mustn't know it, but if you do, it's like an extra. So you should, in essence. So you should just have it as part of your skill set, because you may be asked to implement. I don't know if you've seen all these designers that when they come, they will bring one animation that you will not be thinking, what did these people want from me? What have I done to them? Do you get? So, but if you don't have that skill, you will not be stuck. When, let's say, you're meant to implement something that has an animation and you can't just do it. So learning the basics are important. So from the basics, you can always build up from there, right? So we have two major categories of animations in Flutter. I'll try my best to keep to time, so I don't, spend more than my allocated time. So you have two major categories of animations in Flutter. Now, when you want to build an animation in Flutter, your first thought should be, what kind of animation am I looking at doing? So if your animation is more like a drawing, if it's more like a drawing, you would need, let's say, if it's something that is not widget, like a button or a text or container or something, if it's not something that you can build up within your code, you may have to use a third-party tool like Rive. Rive is an animation software for building animations, and you can build the animation in Rive and then export it to your project and control it there. I was actually planning to show us a sample of an animation that was built in Rive. Like, I was trying to take us through the code, but I wasn't able to get that done in time. But I will show us a sample of most of the samples I've done in the past of Rive animations in Flutter. So what does Rive do for you? Rive just helps you. You can, if the animation is too, if it's like a drawing, if it has a lot of things going on, you can do it in Rive and then export it to your project and then control it from your project, right? But if your animation is more like maybe widget based, things you can build the widget, like changing the color of a widget or changing the position of a widget, it's more code based. So you can do that within Flutter. You can handle that in code, right? So for code based animations, we have two categories. We have implicit and explicit animations. For implicit animations, they are like high level, easy to use animations where Flutter handles the animation process behind the scenes. What does this mean? You're not doing too much work. You're not having to define too many things. Flutter has, widgets you've already like put together that you can just pass in values to them, and Flutter helps you animate them, right? So that's the only thing you do. And I will give you examples of implicit animations, but that's like the basic part of an animation, the basic kind of animation you can do in Flutter. Now, when you are faced with an animation, would I say feature, you have to first of all look at it and break it down. When you break it down into, I think for engineering, totally, whenever you have a thing you have to break it down first, and that's start knowing how you would, from the smallest part, build up on it. So when you are faced with an animation you're meant to build, for you to know what you need to use to build it, you have to break it down. Look at it. What is possible? What can you use here? Do I need to use an implicit animation, or what else do I need to use? Can what I'm seeing here, is it a container that is changing in shape and size and color? If it's a container changing in shape and size and color, then I have to use an animated container. Animated container is a kind of implicit animation widget. So with an animated container, you can change the size, the shape, the color, the border, everything. But you can animate it. You can choose the animation curve. You can choose the animation duration. You can choose, the different values you want to animate, through. So what are those different things are things you can choose, right? We have animated opacity widgets, which means you can change the opacity of a widget. Once you wrap animated opacity on it, you can change the opacity, but now you are using animation. So maybe when you click on the widget, the opacity should change, right? You can handle that using the animated opacity widget. So that's what you can do with it. Then you have animated align, animated padding, and etc. etc. So you can check that up online. There are different animated widgets you can use. You can use to you can use to do things like this for implicit animations, right? So once you want to do an animation, first of all, look at it and be sure if you need implicit or explicit. So you don't start building from scratch what Flutter has already made available for you to get. So then the next other category of animations we have is explicit. Explicit is when you need more control. Maybe you want to do the animation is much more complex than just changing colors or shape. Maybe you want to rotate it. Maybe you want to do something more detailed, and you need more control over the animation process. So now you have to use explicit animation. Now, what does it entail? When you are using explicit animation, you have to define the animation controller. You have to probably define the tween. Tween is like, the different values you are mapping that animation value to. You have to use an animated builder. Animated builder will change the state of the animation. Once the animation value changes, it applies that to the widget. That's what animated builder does, and then the animation itself, right? So that's what when it comes to explicit is that you are doing more work because the animation is much more complex, right? So these are the two different categories you have. You have implicit, you have explicit. Two different kinds of animations that you can do in Flutter. Now, in that explicit, there's another kind of physics simulation animations where Flutter has has catered for that. You can do like spring simulation animations. You can do bouncing school physics. So you can go and research on this more. But Flutter gives you the opportunity to create animations that are like that use physics simulation. That uses stuff like this spring simulation. I will show you a sample of that in code, where you can control the movement of a particular widget and make it, kind of like simulate it to resemble a physics. How will I put it? A physics, would I say feature, or kind of situation. Like when you have most of us that may have done engineering in school or secondary school, you may have done physics, so you know about spring, how to how maybe you did this kind of calculation with pendulum, how to calculate this and this and this. So stuff like that, this kind of simulations, they can also be replicated in your code. So when you know all your options, you will now know, okay, this is what I can use to implement this. This is what is possible with this. So you will now know, okay, the right direction to take. Now, one thing that happens to engineers is that when you don't know, you may go and start going through some long process trying to figure it out. But once you discover there's an easier way, it just makes things much more easier and faster for you when you want to implement animations in your app. So, does anybody have any questions on what I just shared right now? I want to know if you are still together. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Or you understood, you have no questions at all? Just also say it. If you have no questions, let me know. Okay. Dami has reacted, so I'm seeing someone react. Does it mean all of us will have questions? If you don't have questions, please let me know you don't have questions. Okay. Mercy has also said. Temi, I don't know if you have any question. I don't know if Favor has replied. Favor, have you responded? Do you have any question? Olumide, let me be checking for people that are on the call. The reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to just be talking to myself. I want to be sure that okay. Augustine, do you have a question? Or just letting me know that?
Yes, yes. Sorry, I was listening, or I've been listening. So I want to just get the types of animation. So I think I had live animations, and maybe just give me the other one. Thanks.
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So when you were giving the types of animation, so I had live animations and maybe the other type. We can just give me.
Okay. Okay. I was saying that when you you want to do an animation in Flutter and you're thinking, okay, what are my options? Right? There are like two different kinds of animations. We have drawing based animations that like you see they are like in drawing form. You can't really, they're not like widgets you can create. Of course you can draw some things in your code, right? But that's another ballgame altogether when it comes to animation. So you will look at the kind of thing you want to animate. If it's something that's like a code based stuff, like maybe widgets you want to change its color or change its shape or change its size, that you can use either explicit or implicit kind of animations to handle. But if it is more like a kind of drawing, something that you know that is not what you can build within your code, you may need a third party tool like Rive. And what does Rive do? Rive helps developers and designers. So when designers come with I don't know if you've, of course, you may have experienced it, where you are working on a project and the designer is giving you one animation that you're now wondering, are we quarreling? Did you see me in your dream? Because it's looking very out of this world. So when we have really complex animations like that, instead of trying to replicate it in code or struggling to know what to do, you can build it externally in Rive and then export it into your Flutter project and control it from there. So these are the kind of things that Rive gives you. So it's a third-party tool that you can use to create animations. Instead of creating it in Flutter, you create it inside Rive and then export it into your app. So I don't know if that answers your question, Augustine.
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you very much. Thank you for
Right.
clarity.
Thank you. So, in the absence of no questions, we'll proceed to the next. I'm going to. I was talking about explicit animations where we have a more where you as a developer you want more control over the animation. You want to control the duration. You want to control the everything, right? So I'm going to explain what that covers right now for explicit animation. Implicit is very straightforward. You just have a kind of widget where you pass values. That's all you need to do. But for explicit, it's more you need to define a few more things. So there are a couple of things it covers. I'm going to talk about them before I'll show you samples in code, right? So let me just get into that. Okay. So in explicit animation, you would want to, first of all, like define an animation controller. In explicit animation, you have like things that are things you must use, right? One of these animation controller because you use that to control the animation states, right? So, for instance, when you are, let's say, you want to do an animation where you want to turn a widget, you want it to rotate 360 and all that kind of animation, for instance, you first define an animation controller. So animation controller is used to control the animation, the different states. You can use it to start or stop or pause or reverse the animation. So you can also pass in when you're defining the animation controller, you can also pass the animation duration, all those things are what the animation controller does. And then you know how you start it. Then another thing you also need to define is the animation itself, right? So there are different kind of animations you can choose to use. You can use curved or reverse animation, depending on what you want to do, right? But you will have to define it, and that animation is what holds the animation value. So what does animation even mean in the sense of the word? If we look at it, like say critically, animation is simply like change, like changing something over a duration of time. So either you're changing the color or the shape or the position or even, like how did we have videos? Videos are simply moving pictures. So you are changing the position over a period of time. If you would work with Rive whenever in future, you would realize that when you are defining the different let's say different points on your Rive has a place where you can define animation, how you want the animation to run, the duration and everything. So at the place you define different points where the animation is changing, what should happen, you realize that animation is simply change. You want it to be this color at this particular time, at this particular time you want it to be this color, right? So this animation value is an abstract parser. It holds the current value of that animation, and then when the value changes, it notifies listeners. Now, this may just be flying over your head at the moment, but I'm going to show you the sample in code so you can get it better, right? Then the animated builder, it just rebutes itself when the animation changes because it has all those values. It has the animation value, it has the controller, everything is there. So whenever the value changes, it's rebuilding the widgets. That's what the animated builder does. Now you have what we call twin. Now most times you may need to use twin. What does twin do? Twin is actually what it means is in full, it's called between. So twin, it defines a range of values which the animations will interpolate or animate in this sense. So it maps the animation value from the animation controller, which is typically 0 to 1, to a custom range. So depending on if you are changing the width of a particular container or you're changing the rotation, whatever it is, you define those values in the twin, and then you will now map it. You get. So that's what twin does. So I'm going to let you know how they work together, right? So the animation controller, it controls the progress and the timing of the animation. While the twin, it maps the animation progress to specific values like size, opacity, color. In the animation itself, it holds the animation values and notifies listeners like the widgets. While animated builder listens to animation and rebuilds the widgets accordingly. So this is how they all work together in explicit animation. So with this explicit animation, you can animate whatever you want to animate in your code. Be it I think it's one animation that I did one time. Like I did a staggered items in a column. I did a staggered list. So I was inspired by that by one stuff I saw on a particular package where you have staggered list where let's say when you open your app like this and you have items in a column, you have like a number of maybe list styles. So when you open it, it just falls in. Just instead of it to show like at once, it moves and comes in one by one. So it has kind of staggered effect. So these are things you can do with explicit animations because you have control over how you want the animation to look like, how you want it to be, what you want it to do. So you are not restrained by what the animated widgets can do because they have their their limitations. And there are also packages that help you minimize the amount of code you need to write for animation because animation, depending on how complex it is, it may even involve you writing cosine, sine, calculation, geometry, because in Flutter we are dealing with position, you're dealing with it's more on the math side, depending on what you are doing. If what you're doing is really complex, let's say you are moving. There's this particular guy on YouTube. I can't pronounce his name, but I know his name is Vandad. But the other part of his name I can't pronounce it. But he has videos he has done on animation, right? And most of them, when you are following them, you'll be like, is this what it entails? Because depending on how complex what you are doing is, you need to write a lot of calculation. Like calculating the position of when this thing is here, and calculating the angle. If you want to rotate it, you have to do pi times this and all of that. So it gets more complex. But the fun part is that once you get the basics, you can always build on it at any time, right? So I'm going to share my screen shortly and show you some samples. I'm going to show you samples of implicit animations. I'm going to show you samples of explicit. I'm going to show you samples of physics simulation animations. I'm going to also show you Rive samples. But I'm going to show you that from my Github because I don't have it local here. I was trying to do something, but I didn't have enough time to wrap it up before the meeting. So let me just give me a second to share my screen. But before I share my screen, are we together? Like, are we together? Like, do you get
Yes,
what
yes,
I've
we
shared?
are.
Wow, Temi is responding. Thank you very, very much for your response. Thank you, Samuel. I'm glad that we are all on the same page. It is going to be a waste if I'm just talking and you're not getting me, right? And if you have questions, you can just note them down. Once I take you through the different samples and take you through a particular, let's say for Explicit, the code, I'll take you through the code. And then if you have questions, you can then handle them after them. Right. So let me 1 second, let me share my screen. Can you see my screen, please? Can't even see your response anyway. Okay, thank you very much. So this is I believe you can see my code too. This is an implicit animation sample, and this is the code. You can see that we have an animated container here where we are randomly changing the size and the color when this value is false. Is it true? It is true. Okay, so let me just show you that. So this is it. When I you can see on the code, I'm on this on tap, I'm changing the state. So each time I tap on it, there's a change. This green is constant, but the one that is orange keeps on changing and animating. So this is just a very simple animation with animated container where you can, there's a response based on what values we've already defined, right? So we're using an animated container for this. This is the first sample. So let me just show you for explicit animation. I'm going to take you through. This is the one I'm going to explain in details how it's done. Most of us that are here, I think maybe people that are here may already know about all of this, right? But there are most of us that don't, and they're the ones I'm doing this for. Majorly all these different in-depth explanation. But I think even as someone that is a pro and I've gone far, it doesn't hurt to refresh your memory again. So this is an explicit animation where we are rotating these widgets within a given duration, right? And then let me show you a physics simulation animation as well. I think I may also take you through the code for how this was done. That's even the one that I think I enjoy doing the most. So please, if you are saying anything like, well, if you have any questions, you can drop on the chat. So when I come back, I can see it. Because right now I can't see it. So when I tap on it, it bounces. This is a physics simulation because I put values on how much I want it to bounce and all of that. So I'm going to show you that as well in code. For the live animation, I wasn't able to wrap up that on time, so I'll just show you from my Github. Yes, I have a couple of samples here. So let me just take our time. So these are different samples of live animations that I integrated into a Flutter application. Like this is an animation that I tied to like a timer. So as the timer values change, the value of the animation itself is changing. So you can just look at this. There are different samples of external animations that we imported into Flutter and we are using them. And we don't have to do, when we use Rive to do this kind of things, you don't have to do too much calculation because everything happened outside. All you need to do is just to know how to control it within the app. And of course, the more complicated your animation is, the more complex your code might be, But the most important thing is that it makes a lot of things more simpler for you because the work is already done out. And if you're working in a company where you have designers that already know how to use Rive to do their designs, then learning Rive is something that you should also know, so that when they have the animations, you will know how best to integrate them. And because Rive is like a relatively new technology, it's not something that so many people know about yet. But I think that is changing. People are beginning to get interest in it because of how it helps to save a lot of time. Um, it helps you to, let's say, instead of your designer giving you a really complex thing to handle in code, you can just do it in Rive and give you the right file, and then you can now integrate it. So if you need, let's say, insight on what to do or how to get started, Rive has a documentation that it has for Flutter runtime. And you can also come and check my repo here where I put like some samples. You can even use that to start. Once you get to my GitHub, I think um you will just like see it, right? You will just see it. So hmm, okay. So moving on, I think we've already gotten the hang of this. I'm just going to take us back to the code where I'll take us through um, a particular animation and explain what's happening there. So I believe you can all see my screen. This is an explicit animation sample where, let me even show you what is happening here so that if you don't really remember what I'm explaining, so that you can at least see it again. So we have a widget that is just rotating like this. We are going to I'm going to take you through the process of how this was possible in code. And this is a very simple like example. Of course, there are more complex things you can do, but this is like a basic thing, so that just to, let's say, get you started, right? So let me just go through that. Now, everything I was explaining about animation controller, animation itself, you would see it here. So going through the code, you see we have a single ticker provider state mixing. And this single ticker provider state mixing is when you have just one animation controller, you should use this. But if your animation controller is more than one, you should use a ticker provider state mixing, because that's what can cater for it. But what does this single ticker provider state mixing does? What does it do rather? It creates a state that only uses a single animation controller. So it is for when you have just one animation controller. So you will add it for if you want to do anything animation, you have to add this to that stateful widget. Really important. Then you will define your animation controller, define your animation itself, and then your init state, you can now initialize the animation, rather the controller. So for our controller, we pass in our duration. We want it to be 10 seconds. Like you can see, it's not very fast. We pass in the vsync. What does vsync what does it do? It's what ties your controller to this single ticker provider state mixing. And then we can also now define our animation, right? So we stated it here, and then we can define it here. So you can see that we have a twin, and this twin we use it to define the values that this animation will interpolate through. You want the animation to happen from the value you want it to move from is from 0 to 360, right? And we use this animate like say function to drive our controller. So this twin and this where we connect the twin and the controller, right? And then we now state from here, from the controller, we can control how we want the animation to run. So we can put it on repeat so that it can just keep on rotating. It wouldn't stop. So we have different values here. There's controller.forward where you want it to just go once. There's reverse. You have different options here. You can go through the documentation to see more of what you can do here. And then always dispose your controller. When it comes to animation, you have to ensure that your controller is disposed, and the kind of things you dispose generally when you work with Flutter Widgets to prevent it affecting your app performance and just being messy all around, right? So then, before I even move to the next section, which is where we use this animated builder, does anybody have any question on the animation controller bits and the animation, bits? Does anybody have any question? Let me go back to where we are. This is where we are. So,
Okay, so
sharing first.
mine is not like a question. So the repo you use to show the animation, is it public? Can we access the repo?
Yes, definitely you can. This animation we defined. Remember, we defined animation here. Now here we defined where we wanted to start and where we wanted to end. The values you should have. If let's say we wanted to change the color of that widget, we would put maybe color dot red here and color dot whatever. So this twin holds the value that the animation starts with and where it ends. So it maps it to what they have in the controller. So whatever this thing wants to do, it must finish within 10 seconds that we define in our controller, right? So it maps it to this, and it just moves from that start to the end. And then based on, we can also even add the extra things we can add here. We can add the kind of animation we want. We want it to be a curved, maybe ease in, ease out, all this kind of stuff. We can still like add it here as well. But moving on, we have our animation where we pass the animation we defined here, and then we have a builder that returns a transform.rotate. So this widget is what's going to transform, or rather rotate that container that we have here. Look at how it looks like. So this transform is what does most of that work. Transform has many other it has many other functions within it. It can also scale. We have scale. We have, I think, a host of other ones. I think you can just check the docs for this, and then you would see the other things you can do with it. But we are using rotation for now, and then we are passing the animation of value, which is the angle, right? This is rotating. So this animation of value is changing at every point. It's changing within that duration. So whatever the value is what it will be if you pass it in this angle here. When you pass the child is this container, right? So having done that, once we run the application, that's really all. It's a very simple, a very easy example. So that's all you need to do to have this explicit animation up and running. And that's for this. So I'm going to explain the one for the physics simulation. So let me just even get it to show. Based on how I set it, I need to define it here on the main board that so you can see it. Okay, it's taking time to get us restarted. So this is an example where when you click on it, the animation, happens, right? So I'm going to take you through what we did here. Now we have, like I said, we defined our single ticker provider state mixing because we have just one animation controller. Then we also defined this is spring simulation. It models a particle attached to a spring that follows Hooke's law. Most of all, this physics, we know about Hooke's law. So this is what, like you can see, it comes from Flutter physics package. This is where it comes from, the physics file rather. So then moving on, in the init state like we did before, we're going to define the animation controller. But this time we're going to define the lower bound and upper bound. And this lower bound and upper bound is just a range of the animation value. How far can it go, right? So we define it here. And I will say it can start from 0 and the upper bound is like, there's no limit to it. And then we have the duration, which is 2 seconds. because our animation must end within 2 seconds, right? And then we have our simulation. We define our simulation here. The spring simulation has a param of spring description. We can define the mass of that spring, right? What we want it to weigh, but what the weight is what affects the movement, the stiffness, and then the damping, right? So you can still go ahead and read all of this up, but that is what it is. Then this 0 is the initial position, 200 is the target position because now you're going to spring up and then come down, and then 0 is the target velocity. So we are also going to use the controller to do dot animate with simulation. What are we doing here? We are like tying the controller and the simulation together. So this is what makes the animation happen. And you can see we didn't use twin here. So using twin depends on what you want to achieve. Of course, we will now go ahead to dispose the controller, and then we have an animated builder where we pass in the controller. Then we have the builder, right, where we have transform.translate, and this translate takes a parameter offset. Offset is what I think from here we can define the position of that widget. So it's going to move from this. It's going to move from just for this is offset has x and y coordinates. So x is static. It is the x position, but the y position is going to change because it's going to be bouncing up and down like this. So this value is what is being passed here, right? And we have the child. So when I put this on the on tap, so that when someone taps on it, it calls the animation again, right? And then we have the container itself, right? So this is just how it works. Yes, like I said before, it's pretty simple. You just click on it and then the animation happens within 2 seconds. So it goes to the topmost position, which we defined there, and then it comes back and then comes back to this final state, which we defined here as well, right? So that's pretty much it for this one, for this physics simulation animation, right? So I think that this is for the explanation I'm going to give for this. Now I want to just confirm if we have any questions. Oh, the volume of the audio. Can we hear me clearly? I need to remember to ask. Can we hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can actually hear you.
Okay. Okay. Someone was saying that he wasn't hearing as well as before. So, but I believe that what we shared so far is pretty clear. I still want to confirm if we have anyone that's not still clear on what we shared and wants us to look at something.
Okay, so the last animation we should talk about now, the physics simulator.
Yes.
When you actually showed us the results, I'm not sure I saw any animation.
Oh, okay. Let me explain that. Now, the animation itself, right, is when we talk about physics simulation kind of examples, we are simulating it to act like it is controlled by the laws of physics. For instance, if you drop a ball, it's going to like bounce, right? So there's a spring effect when it hits the ground and it comes up again. What we did here, let me show you. Let me share my screen again. What we did here, I believe you can see my screen. What we did here is that we when you tap on this like this, I you can see it's moving. You can see the up and down motion like it's bouncing. That is the animation. This is an animation because it's not just static, it is moving, it is changing. But now if you are using just a regular let's say transform.translate, the regular one, you just move straight up and come back. It won't have this bouncing effect because it is just transform.translate, just move it maybe based on, it may just move it based on the curve you add. If you add the linear curve, if you add like a ease in, ease out kind of curve, it will just use that animation curve to move it and bring it back. Nothing is happening, nothing special is happening. But because we're using this spring simulation here, that's what's making us have this effect of a bouncing ball. So it is more like it is being the laws of physics are affecting it. It's giving that illusion of, oh, this thing is happening like this. So that is the effect of that particular spring simulation. That's what it does. And there are different other ones. If you go to check Flutter documentation, you will see different other options that you have to implement this, right? Or something similar to this. So if you want to have, like I said before, if you won't have something you are being asked to implement in your code and you're not sure how to go about it, maybe there may be options like this that one may not be aware of, and you may start wondering, okay, how am I going to achieve this thing? But it's already there. Flutter has it available, right? So you can click on this and then you're having this kind of bouncing effect, which you wouldn't have if you're just using regular transforms or translates maybe, and then you add a particular kind of curve to it. So that is it. I don't know if you get me. Let me go back. So
Yeah, I get you. Thank you for that.
okay. So does anybody have any other question? Is there anybody here that's not clear on something that we shared? Please let me know. Okay, so if you are clear, also let me know. Like everything that we said was just very, very clear. There was no there was nothing that wasn't clear enough. So Olumide, Samuel, Chidera, Kelechi, Jeffrey, I'd like to see your responses so that we know that we're all on the same page. So if you don't have any questions, we really come to the ending, part of this session. If you don't have any questions, okay, Samuel has responded. So is anybody that doesn't have that? Okay, yeah, I'm seeing response. I'm seeing Kelechi respond. Please, I'd like to see your response so that we know we're all together. Thank you very much. All right. Since there are no questions from anybody, I guess, and that gives me the opportunity to ask my own questions, just to be sure. It's just to have something we can close with, right? So I don't know how we're going to do it. Maybe I'm going to just ask anybody that that person's name is looking fine in my eyes, or anyone, right? Okay, so let's go straight ahead, just to be sure we are all together. Right? If you feel like you can't answer it, or you're uncomfortable, or you feel like, okay, you don't want to answer, just also let us know on the chat. Don't air me. Don't answer. If you cannot answer at the moment, if you prefer to talk later, if you don't have the answer to it, just say it so we can know. Okay, it's not like who wants to be a millionaire. It's very free. Okay, so we have like two different categories of animations. Like what are those categories, and what are like samples of what you can do with them and where they are used. So if you want to just answer, you can let me know. If you want to answer, you can raise your hand. Nobody wants to answer. I'll be forced to ask somebody directly, just so I'll be sure that we are together. So I'm waiting. Here's one thing about online. You won't see anybody's face, anybody's expression. So it is well. Okay. I'll have to ask somebody because nobody's responding. Who will I ask now? Whose name is looking fine? Let's call. Okay, Jeffrey. Hey, thank you very much. I thought nobody would. Olumide, in short, if they are to give a medal of most responsive person in this session, I have to give it to you. Okay. So Olumide, please go ahead. Let me not call someone that's not ready. Please go ahead to share with us.
The two categories of animations are implicit and explicit animation.
Okay, that's really correct. Um, that's exactly on the point. So I'd like you to like explain. Okay, for example, for implicit, what are like the different, the ones you can remember, even if it's one, right? Um, Different widgets that are available for implicit, and then for explicit, what are those things that you need to have to, like, there are some things that are must-haves, or if you need to say one thing that's a must-have for explicit animation. So, what do you mean, please?
So for implicit animations, I'm not sure. I think the deciding factor is whether you have to create a vsync, I mean a single ticker state reliable mixing and an animation controller. So for implicit animations, you can just use a single widget. No need to create animation controller or anything. So some of the widgets are animated container, animated builder, I think rotated box. I'm not sure about that one. But I know animated container. Animated container is the main one I know. But for explicit animations, you have to create a ticker state provider mixing. You have to use a stateful widget, a ticker state provider mixing, then create an animation controller, then you manually set everything up using maybe a twin or so.
Wow.
So
Okay.
explicit animations are more complex. That's the main thing.
Yeah, true. Thank you so much, Olumide. Thank you so much. But the rest of us that are hearing, people cannot even encourage him and can put reactions. He's getting the answer. Nobody is doing anything. Everybody just, thank you very much. Olumide, see, they're clapping for you. Thank you. You did well. Thank you. I'm so glad that we are together. You know, it's one thing to talk, but it's another thing for who you're talking to actually be getting what you are saying. What I would like, my desire from this session is that after this session, you will have like an idea. When faced with an animation, you will have an idea of how to go about it. You will know, okay, what what direction do I take? Do I do implicit? Do I do explicit? Do I do rive? You will know, okay, what direction to take, how to break down the animation. Should it be a physics simulation animation I will do? Do I have to look at this? So one thing about one thing I've learned so far is that as in this field that we are in, there are always like changing technologies, and if you're not like if you're not um what's it called, if you're not being told about these things, you may just be in your box and you are struggling over something that the answer is already outside there. You get. Mercy, please, can go ahead. Mercy J, your hand is raised. Okay, I'm not so sure why she's not.
Yeah, good evening. So the video I sent to you in your chat, so that is actually an assessment, right? So I'm trying to create that. So can you just give me a preview of the type of animation I will use?
Okay. I know I watched that video, but I'm not sure I remember everything about the video now. I may have to watch it again later. But I think what I remember was like widgets changing, like the shape of widgets changing. So from what I can see there, I think it's going to be a code-based animation. You're not going to have to go outside to do anything, but you may need to use a mix of implicit animations for all those containers that are changing shape and size. Maybe when you open, let me show you something. I don't know if you saw, there's an article I wrote on how I achieved staggered animation. I don't know if I'll put the link here. Maybe it will help, I guess. But the idea is that from what I can see, it is really just a code-based animation. There's some that you may need to use things like animated container, opacity, depending. There's some you may need to have to define animation controller for. So there are different animation happening on that page based on what I remember right now. So you need to go through all of them one by one and say, okay, for this one, it's what I'm going to use. Or you can pick one and then finish that one first and then move to the other one. So anything that's going to change if something is changing in shape, like a container changing in shape or color or size, animated controller may work for animated widget may work for that, like how you have animated container. But if it's more complex, like involving angles, involving rotation, involving if it just looks more complex to you, it may be the one you will need an animation controller for. So it really depends. There are a lot of things were happening on that page, so I'm not very sure. I may need to look at it again to give you a better response. But let me drop a link to that article that I wrote for staggered animation. I'm going to drop it on the chat so that you can see it as well. It may help while you are working on that. Okay. Oh, oh God. Only is the star person of this class, of this session. In short, I give it to you. Where is the medal? Where is it? Mercy, please give the medal for Olumide. You have overtried for me. Thank you very much. Thank you. So you can actually check this what's it called? This particular, let me even share my screen and show you. I think probably you may have already seen it if for anything. If you go to the link, you probably see what is there. But for those that may not have the opportunity to go and see it right now, let me just share my screen and show you what I'm trying to tell her. So something like this now is a staggered animation. When you enter the page, the animation is happening. So this is these are list items in a particular list. So you are animating them on init once you enter that particular stateful widget. So if you have things like this going on, like what I used to achieve, it wasn't animated container, because you can see it involves a list of items. So animated container can't do that. Animated opacity or animated whatever is called. They have other different widgets in Flutter. They have animated opacity, they have animated padding. So it couldn't do this for me. I had to use explicit animation option to do this. I had to define animated controller. Then there are things like, but the code is here. Link to the code is on this particular article, so you can even go and check it out later, right? But that is what it is on that one. Okay, thank you so much for that question, Mercy. I think that's something that I may not have talked about if not for the fact that you asked that question. Okay, so no, I know people say you don't have questions. My own questions, like I said earlier on, Lumida has just been trying. Has answered the first one, so I believe somebody else, should try and put competition in this place, so that Lumida won't be too comfortable. So I'm going to ask, right? In what kind of situation, or rather, let's say you have faced an animation issue, in what kind of situation would you choose? This is a very simple question. Would you choose Rive animation? What will make you come to the point where you say, okay, I need to use Rive to implement this. I can't do it for myself in code. Or rather, reading it may be impractical, or it may be too much, or it wouldn't just work in code. I need to use Rive. And I also want to ask if the person has used Rive before. Remember, I answered this question. I also asked you, have you used Rive before? And then if you've used it, how was the whole process like? So then who will I ask? We have the question now, so who will I ask? Let me check from the list. Favor, I've been looking for you. Favor, please, can you answer? I know that you at least you are responding from the beginning, so please. My question was, At what point, let's say you're faced with an animation challenge, what will make you choose to use Rive? Why would you come to that conclusion? Let's say you want to build an animation and you have this in front of you, you don't know what to do.
Okay, your question.
Okay, you didn't hear my question.
Yeah, your network was kind of. I mean, my network was breaking rather.
Okay, I was asking. So, let's say you are faced with an animation stuff, maybe from your company or whatever. You are asked to build something. Um, at what point will you make that choice that okay, I should use Rive to build this instead of
Uh,
doing it code base? So, what will make you make that decision?
okay, was for something like that would involve characters or MC objects rather. Like the Duolingo app now, something like animating the bed to maybe fly when you press a button. That kind of thing, I will do it with Rive because building a bed from scratch in custom paints, I don't think that's possible or ideal actually. So those kind of things, I'll do it with Rive. Yeah.
Okay, have you used Rive before?
Um. Yeah, but not full. Like just to touch the waters, just to see how the mechanics of it.
Okay, so how was the experience like? Was it like easy to to use as a beginner?
Yeah. It's easy to use.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. That was an awesome answer to the question. So let me even check the time we have. Okay. One last question for the before I stop asking. So if any other person has, he can then ask me. Okay, so I want to ask somebody here why what is the use of first what is the use of animation controller and animation builder and how are they different? So why what do we use animation controller for and what do we use animation builder for and why are they like two different things? What differentiates them? They sound similar, controller and builder. So what's the defining factor between two of them? I'm going to ask somebody. I know I was meaning to, I called Jeff's name, but I stopped because I didn't really answer the question or he raised his hand. So once more, Jeff, can you answer? I like to hear your voice. So I'm waiting. If you can't talk where you are, please leave a chat too. Let us know so I won't put you in a spot where you can't maybe talk at that time. Or maybe you can't hear me.
Okay, no, I can. So, well, my understanding of the animation controller and the animation builder is that so basically, like the name implies, the animation controller is what controls your animation. So if you want to progress it to the next stage, maybe you have a bird flying, you want to move it over to landing on the tree or something. So you use your animation controller to control the values that does the work. While your animated builder is basically like your set states, your states, your state for your animation basically. So like you have your value listenable builder if you have a value listenable. So it's basically it takes in your animation objects and it uses it to render the widgets when that changes. So it's just basically the house for your widgets, your animation state basically.
Yeah. That's on point. That's on point. Thank you so much. That was a very concise answer. So I believe that this was just like a beginner's class or rather session. It was really basic stuff that we handled, but the beautiful part is that once you learn the basics, once you are constant with the basics, you can always just build upon it. Elumide graciously put the link for an animation course on YouTube that you can use. That course it has different things you can follow along. You can just watch it, whichever one works for you. But at least from there you can gain more insights, more complex use cases of explicit animation where you are using animation controller and the like, right? So you can use that to learn more. Then if let's say you are interested in um, using third-party tools like Rive, you can check their documentation. They have a docs online if you want to know how to get started. Now, one thing about Rive is that because we are engineers, we may not particularly have the use or may want to go there to build animations from scratch. But it's important you know how to at least integrate the ones that have been built from there. And Rive has like a community part where they have community files. So there are different animations that are there that you could just take. That even reminds me, I have is a package that I worked on, and I'm going to share the link to that just for those that might be interested. And it is a package that provides animated icons, live animated icons for your photo applications. So you can check it out later. I dropped the link on the chat. So what it just does is that like we have packages that give you access to a lot of icons that you can just use. You don't have to go and start importing icons from outside or downloading icon assets. You can just use it and call it within your code. So this particular package, it gives you access to live animated icons, and you can customize it to suit your project. You can change the color, you can change the size, you can change the stroke width because they're all stroke icons. Change the stroke width of the icon, and you can use it on your website because you can use it. It has an on hover property, it has an on tap property. You can even loop the animation so it's playing on loop. You can put loop animation to true and it's playing on loop. So it's just something you can use in your project. So I've added a link to the package there. You can check it out. It's something that you can also use whenever you see the need to. Like, it's good to have options so that whenever the opportunity comes, you remember, okay, I can actually do this with this, right? So I will encourage us to, based on what we've gathered from this session, we have learned the difference between implicit and explicit animation. We have learned what it entails, like what it covers. We've talked about the physics-based animations, and when you want to build an animation, what direction should you look at it from? So if you are faced with a very complex animation, first thing you need to do is to break it down. Pick the easiest parts from it, and then start from there to think of how to to build it, to replicate it. What and what should I need to make this appear in code? So you will not think about the different options. We have for implicit, you have animated container, you have animated opacity. Then for explicit, what can I do with it? I can change the angle is staying. I can change it. I can change that. So you can think about all these things and then know the best option to pick for whatever you want to achieve in your code, right? So these options are available. They are available, and now that we know, we can also build on it. Just to emphasize again, you can use the link for that YouTube course to gain extra knowledge on, to see other more complex samples of explicit animations. I've used that course. I've gone through that course some time ago, and it's really nice. It's really nice. It's something that will help you for more projects that you may be working on. So that's for that one. And I think that is all. Does anybody have any question or anything the person wants to say before we call it a night?
Okay. Good evening. Thank you so much for doing this. So I just want to request one thing. What about you get us like a Figma design that we can just get our hands dirty with animation?
Okay. A Figma design that you can animate.
Yes. Or anything, might just be a random screen, or like this is like 3 screens that has animation, like different types of animation that we can use. It's just at least one or two things.
Okay, that works too. At least what we've learned to use it, right? Okay, so that's perfectly fine. I'll send it to you, Mercy, so that you can share with the rest of us. So I'll send it to you. Something that we can replicate. Oh, there are different things you can do. There's even on Dribble there are some animations there that you can replicate in um in code. There's this animation that I on that article. There's this clock. I won't call it an animation shot because it's not really an animation, but it's more like the clock is, it is ticking, right? It's an actual like clock built with custom pins, and then it is moving um per second. So I won't call it an animation. I will still call it an animation because it's changing in the duration of time. But then that's also something that we can check out. It's on that article that I spoke about. But I will find something like that, a Dribble animation, and then I'll send to Mercy so that we can just try out what we've learned and see how it goes. So I think that is everything. One thing I want to ask, if you enjoyed this session, please can I see a reaction? If you did not enjoy it, also let me know. If you found it like you learned something worthwhile, your 1 hour 30 minutes was not a waste, and just thank you very much. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that you had a great time. I had a great time. I enjoyed, sharing with us and getting to meet most of us. I've gotten to meet Olumide, I've gotten to meet Favor, Jeffrey, some people that I met, we are no longer on the call. And the rest of us that may not have spoken directly, but I've seen your reactions. Kelechi, Augustine, Samuel, thank you so much for being here today. Dami, yes, Dami used to react. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so glad to have met all of us, and I'm looking forward to, hearing the things we are going to do with what we've learned tonight. So thank you so much. I'm going to be signing out now. Thank you so much, Mercy. Thank you to That Mind community for the opportunity to be here. I'm grateful. And have a good night, everyone. True Data.